here today, and you're probably going to recognize this hawk, especially when you take a look at that rear end there. Without raising your hands, does anybody want to take a guess as to what kind of hawk Tilden might be? He is indeed a red-tailed hawk, as it gives a little shake there for you. This is probably one of the most recognizable hawk species native to our region and to the continent of North America. They are incredibly successful and therefore incredibly widespread across the woodlands of the east, the plains of the north, deserts of the west, even found making a very good living on the Caribbean islands as well. So they do very, very well for themselves, not only as this generalist bird of prey that can live almost anywhere, but also because they have the traits that all birds of prey have to make a living at or near the top of the food chain. Some of y'all just got a very up-close look at those traits, did you not? You probably noticed here on his powerful toes that he does have sharp, grasping claws. What are those claws on birds called, y'all? Talons, that's exactly right. Talons that he will use to grasp a wide variety of prey items, hopefully not the squirrel that just went running up the tree there. So we'll try to get Tilden on back down and back in the game here, but sometimes, well, nature wins out. So if you hear a squeak, well, there you go, nature at its finest, right? He would absolutely have no trouble spotting that squirrel as close as it was to us. He's living life on the edge. Now we're going to get Tilden on down here one final time and send him home because it looks like the squirrel is definitely going to win the day today. So we'll see if he wants to actually just fly straight home from the glove there, from Carly's glove. So we'll see if he wants to come home for Miss Rachel up there, and we'll move on to another bird that probably doesn't have as much kill instinct as old Tilden. Because the other birds that we're going to be meeting throughout the program today are actually here for a very different reason than Tilden. All the other birds that we are going to meet in this program are actually what we call human infants. They have no knowledge of how to go out there and capture live prey. But Tilden absolutely does. But it doesn't look like that's going to happen. Anybody want to take a guess on who that may be? Who? There you go. An owl. That's exactly right. And we are going to welcome on out not just any owl, but the largest owl species native to our southeastern region, the third largest on the North American continent, as we say hello to Juniper. Juniper is a beautiful great horned owl. When she shows you something besides her backside, you will see how beautiful she really can be. As she turns around, you are going to look into those big, beautiful yellow eyes. That is definitely indicative of her species. Some owls have yellow eyes, others have orange, others have brown. Scientists don't know exactly as to why the color variation exists, although their most commonly held belief is it actually has to do with the time of day that the owl is most active when hunting. I know, it's confusing, right? Because you might be sitting here thinking, wait, owls only hunt at night. That is absolutely not true. Some owls hunt at night only. Others hunt only in the daytime. Others, whenever the time is right and the fat rat runs under the tree, right? They are very opportunistic. But for the most part, at least for the owls in our region, they are primarily nocturnal. And Juniper is absolutely no exception. Great horned owls are also found widespread and across the continent, from sea to shining sea, and they are one of the largest owl species you'll find native to our region. You might recognize them if you do capture a glimpse of them, not only because of those big, beautiful yellow eyes, but also because of these horn-like structures on top of their head, hence the name Great Horned Owl. Now, do y'all think those are actually horns, like you would find on a goat? No. What do you think they might be? Feathers! Look at all you bird nerds. That's exactly right. They are nothing more than feathers, oftentimes mistaken for the bird's ears, but they absolutely are not their ears. Some owls have them, others do not. What they're used for is communication and for camouflage purposes. So that's a great way to know if this is the owl that you've ever caught a glimpse of in your region. But you don't always capture a glimpse of owls, right? Many of them are primarily more comfortable to be active once the sun goes down. So a lot of the time we know they're in the area because we do hear them call. Now, not all owls hoot, but this is one that does. Baby almost got a great horn to the forehead, you guys. Forehead level or below there, y'all. This is absolutely one of 2 owls in our area that we know as a hoot owl. The rest have never and will never hoot a day in their whole lives. If you hear the call of a great horned owl, you might hear more of a type of call, this deep, rhythmic, and monotonous kind of a vocalization. However, that is not the noise she is making, is it? She is making more of a that right there. That is typical of her species as well, just not of a bird of her age. Juniper is in her early teens, you guys. She should have stopped making that noise before her first year of life was over. But she didn't, because she is a human imprint. Her source of food is us humans, right? Typically, an owl's source of food would be who when they're young? Mama and Daddy, that's exactly right. This is what we call a contact call for these juvenile birds. After they've left the nest and they're hopping around on the ground, this is the contact call where the parents know where they are and they can then bring them dinner. Now, when we intervene and we pick up these small owls, we take them home, we continuously feed them throughout their life. Well, they never had to go out there and find food on their own, so they continue to make that noise asking for food because they can't get it on their own time. It's kind of like that old saying, if you treat them like babies, they're going to act like babies, right? Well, Exhibit A here for you. Now, owls, though, they not only have those common traits that they can roll their eyes all day long, can't they, right? Because our muscles are incredibly well developed because we just have the room for them. Now, owls do not. Their eyes, being so large, they are fixed in their skull, very much like a car's headlights. So, if she wants to look around, she can't turn her eyes, what must she do? She must turn her head. Here's a question. How far can an owl rotate its head on a horizontal plane?
All the way around.
180. That's an excellent guess. Anybody else want to play? 270, I heard it. You are exactly right. 270 degrees is absolutely right on. Many people think 360. I like to say, yes, one time and one time only. Right? Just like if any of us tried that, they're not going to be able to rotate that head all the way around, but what they are going to be able to do is turn it 3/4 of that way. So they still can make an incredible head rotation. But here's the thing about these guys, though, y'all, is that almost every bird on our planet can rotate their head almost that same degree. It's just that we notice it more than those of the hawks or the falcons or the eagles. So they can be quiet. That's exactly right. The diurnal raptors, or birds of prey, are much more streamlined. Their feathers are as well, and very stiff or rigid. They are built for speed and built for agility. But owls are just the opposite. They're not the quickest, they're not the most maneuverable, but they do not have to be because they are by far the stealthiest of the raptors of the world. Those soft, flexible feathers help to break up and disperse sound waves incredibly quickly. So they drop down on these silent wings out of the darkness of night, taking prey by surprise that never even knew they were being hunted in the first place. So it's really, really ironic that we think owls are adorable. We are bigger than them. We are not on the dinner menu. Otherwise, this is our living nightmare come to life. Especially in this bird's case. Great horned owls are what we call a great horned owl, like the barred owl, or I should say the great horned owl like Juniper, or the barred owl that calls our region home. But if you're from another area over the continent or throughout the states, then your hoot owls in your area can be completely different than those found in our region. Saying a hoot owl is kind of like saying chicken hawk, you guys. Chicken hawk is whatever hawk is closest to the chickens on that particular day. Hoot owl is whatever owl tends to hoot in your given region. So you guys, it is kind of important that you know what owls are in your area, especially if you are a fan of them and you are hoping to help preserve their habitats or their numbers within your ecosystem. The best thing that you can do is to leave your property as natural as possible. The taking down of large trees, especially those that have big holes or cavities in them, is going to be the main reason as to why owls cannot reside in your area. They do not tend to build stick nests, as you see. Open it, Carly, open it. As you see in our area, they tend to live in these cavities or these holes in these big trees, and that is the main reason as to why owl numbers tend to decline, because we cut down these cavity-filled trees, taking away their nesting site in this region, you guys. So leaving your property natural, or as much of it as you possibly can absolutely help. Whenever we are ready, we're going to go ahead and welcome him on down. If you're not in a seat, then we need you to exit the amphitheater quickly, as he's going to zoom down right over the top of your heads there. So we're going to go ahead and move on in the program and see if Willow would like to join us this afternoon. Barred owls have not only resided over the easternmost portion of the continent, but recently they have pushed their way north and west onto the Pacific coastal regions. So if you're from Lower Canada, Washington State, or even Oregon State, then you might recognize a barred owl like Willow here. As he turns around, you're going to see that those chest and belly feathers are indeed sporting that barring. Can we sit down, please, here? That barring on a bench, please. This barring coloration and pattern across his chest and belly feathers there, as he gives you a good view of his front side. But you'll also see that the camouflage over these birds is spectacular. Not only on the underside, where prey items might be looking up at them from the forest floor, but also on the top side. This is very important. These birds have speckles and spots and barrings of color, even on the tip top of their head. This is incredibly important if anything like a larger raptor decides to be flying over the tree canopy, looking down, and might catch a bird of prey unaware. So this camouflage is vital to their hunting success. Even with this incredible camouflage almost completely disappearing from sight, only 1 out of every 13 hunting attempts is successful for predators. How frustrating would that be, right? Can you imagine cooking 13 meals and you finally get to eat on the last one? That is kind of what these birds are dealing with on a regular basis. Not only to feed themselves, but also their youngsters whenever that time of year does roll around. Whenever spring and early summer rolls around, you will probably hear a lot more vocalizations as these birds establish their territories, telling their neighbors to stay out of their region. And in fall, whenever the babies get those learner's permits, right, and they have to keep tabs on one another, well, nobody has a little birdie cell phone, so these vocalizations are very, very important to be able to communicate effectively with one another. Now, barred owls are more specialist, though. They're not found over deserts or plains. They are only found in riparian ecosystems, big trees next to water, or where barred owls call home. They'll eat a wide variety of things throughout these more specialized environments, though. Everything from small rodents to amphibians like frogs to reptiles sit on their dinner menu. In fact, other invertebrates like crawfish are a favorite of barred owls living on waterways. Here's a fun fact. If a barred owl, when going through their molt, right, when they're growing in their new feathers during summer, if they eat enough of these crayfish, then their new feathers will actually grow in to be a slight shade of pink. How cool is that? You could have a pink barred owl in your backyard, right? And it is not because they're messy eaters and there are juices dribbling down their chin or anything like that. It is literally because of the pigments, the carotenoid pigments coming out from that diet. And we see this with other birds too, y'all. Flamingos. What color do flamingos appear to be? Pink. Pink. Or so you would think, wouldn't you? They actually are not. They're naturally more of a pale, white or cream color. The only reason that they are pink is because of their diet. They eat a lot of shrimp and certain algae that they filter out of the waterways, and that pink coloration from the shrimp and the algae once again comes out in those feathers. We did not know that was the cause of their pink color until we started bringing them into captivity, and we put them on a more of a man-made diet. They were not getting those same carotenoid pigments, so when they went through their next molt, a feathered friend of the afternoon is actually going to be a diurnal bird of prey. So we're moving away from the nocturnal shift back into these daytime active birds as we welcome on down autumn. Now, Autumn has red in her common name too. She is a red-shouldered hawk, a cousin, a smaller cousin of the red-tailed hawk that we met previously who went on his little adventure. Red-shouldered hawks, well, they get their common name for good reason. That rufous coloration, instead of being on their tail feathers, is absolutely found on what appears to be their shoulders. Now, they're also well known for not only being the Mariah Carey of the eastern woodlands as they hit all those high notes, but also one of the most beautifully colored or marked raptors of the eastern states, because not only does that rufus red appear on their shoulder region, but also over their chest and belly feathers as well. And then y'all got a pretty decent look at those black and white tail and wing feathers of theirs. Now, it's pretty neat that Autumn, the red-shouldered hawk, is coming out right after Willow, the barred owl, because what we are seeing here are counterparts of one another. That means that these predators are about the same size, they live in the same kind of habitats or environments, and they tend to eat the same kinds of prey. They just work different shifts. Right? This is very, very important because this is what we call balance of nature. You cannot just have your predators, which are your pest controllers, working at one time of day, can you? If all you had was the night shift, the rats would just sleep all night and party all day, wouldn't they? So this is why balance is so important. So just like those barred owls, her counterpart, are going to be found living throughout the woodlands of the east primarily, this bird will also, especially near a water source also. So if you do capture a flash of color, and if you do hear this distinct vocalization falling and you're near water, you can best bet that it is a red-shouldered hawk that is calling your area. Now, this is great, not only because they're excellent pest control for rodents, but also if you are not the biggest fan of snakes, well, this is your new best friend. She loves them. In fact, she loves them so much, they are her favorite dinner guest. Think of it like that. They hunt them so often, they've even developed an incredibly impressive hunting tactic to take them down safely and effectively. And I'll tell you a little bit more about that, you guys. But first, I think that Autumn did a lovely job hanging out with us today. How did y'all enjoy meeting a red-shouldered hawk? Thank you, Autumn. So you guys, if you ever do see a red-shouldered hawk doing what looks like a dance on the ground in your backyard, she is kind of a little deadly tango, so to speak, with a snake of some kind of raptor here today. And you're probably going to recognize this hawk, especially when you take a look at that rear end there. Without raising your hands, does anybody want to take a guess as to what kind of hawk Tilden might be? He is indeed a red-tailed hawk, as it gives a little shake there for you. This is probably one of the most recognizable hawk species native to our region and to the continent of North America. They are incredibly successful and therefore incredibly widespread across the woodlands of the east, the plains of the north, deserts of the west, even found making a very good living on the Caribbean islands as well. So they do very, very well for themselves, not only as this generalist bird of prey that can live almost anywhere, but also because they have the traits that all birds of prey have to make a living at or near the top of the food chain. Some of y'all just got to than those of the hawks or the falcons or the eagles. so they can be quiet. That's exactly right. The diurnal raptors, or birds of prey, are much more streamlined. Their feathers are as well, and very stiff or rigid. They are built for speed and built for agility. But owls are just the opposite. They're not the quickest, they're not the most maneuverable, but they do not have to be, because they are by far the stealthiest of the raptors of the world. Those soft, flexible feathers help to break up and disperse sound waves incredibly quickly. So they drop down on these silent wings out of the darkness of night, taking prey by surprise that never even knew they were being hunted in the first place. So it's really, really ironic that we think owls are adorable. We are bigger than them. We are not on the dinner menu. Otherwise, this is our living nightmare come to life. Especially in